Yes, I am live from my friend's kitchen. And as you can see here, Paige Matson or Maston, who is an opinion writer, actually the deputy, I believe. Let's just scroll down and make sure we get this right. She's the deputy opinion writer for the Charlotte Observer, um, deputy opinion editor. So that's pretty high up. That's like second in command. Though she graduated from college 3 years ago, less than 3 years ago, to 2021. And I'm guessing it would be like spring of 21. So let's say 3 years ago, she graduated from college. She's already second in line as opinion editor. And she thinks that Michele Morrow is an existential threat to public schools in North Carolina because she is a homeschool mom and, quote, far right. And we're going to talk about this and a couple other pieces because as somebody who used to be in TV news, I also now am, pretty close to being the mom of school age kids. And our plan at this point is homeschool. And so I think it's interesting because more and more I see this topic coming across headlines, and it seems to be very disconcerting for some people in either education or news, even. Like, it just seems like we're this very weird set of people who are opting out again of this idea of democratic norms that we see constantly talked about in education is in that world of democratic norms, I guess public education, if you will. So when people criticize public education or opt out of public education, it sort of sets off like the little hairs on the back of the necks of some of the people who are very concerned about these democratic norms. Again, even though we live in a constitutional republic, not a democracy, but that's a topic for another day. So I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. This, again, we're going to look through this and a couple other things, but the GOP nominee for North Carolina Superintendent is an existential threat to public schools. Well, why does Paige say that? All right, first off, you see Michele here, Michele Morrow, and she was at January 6th at the Capitol. She did not go into the Capitol. So she just was at the rally outside. But she's a Trump supporter, or at least she was a Trump supporter. They don't like that. And also, she's been very critical of public education. She's told people not to send their kids to public school because of her criticisms of it. She's talked about critical race theory, the gender issues, a bunch of the stuff that lots of people are talking about in the dissident world, I guess. And so it's interesting to call her an existential threat, and because a lot of the stuff she says is just not really that, it's not really that radical. If you're in the world of The Outsider, you hear this kind of stuff all the time. What Paige writes here, though, is that Morrow, who has 5 homeschooled children, has called public schools indoctrination centers and urged people not to send their kids to them, according to WRAL News. We're going to watch a video from them in a second. She also attended the January 6th, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol and supports policies such as arming teachers. Morrow believes that schools are pushing, quote, social, political, and sexual agendas and vows to eradicate critical race theory and porn from classrooms, despite the fact that there is no widespread evidence to suggest it's being taught. There is no widespread evidence. I don't know. To support that critical race theory is being taught. I don't know how anyone's even debating that part of it. That's just like an open thing. I mean, diversity, equity, inclusion training. That's funny to me. Morrow framed Truitt, that's her opposition, the lady who currently is superintendent, as a liberal politician. She was in the GOP, but trying to, quote, push transgenderism in schools. And here we go. This is where it gets good. If you scroll down, here we go. The Republican nominee to guide public education in North Carolina is someone whose children have never attended public school in the state. She actively undermines public education, vilifies teachers, and makes false and inflammatory statements about what students are supposedly being taught. Make no mistake, the next superintendent of public instruction could be someone who doesn't believe in public instruction at all. That such a person would be a nominee for any statewide office is certainly an indictment of today's Republican Party and the ways in which its leaders have cultivated a constituency that would vote for such a person in the first place. So the reason that she's saying she doesn't believe in public instruction at all, I don't really quite understand because I haven't heard that. I haven't seen that. I'm assuming what she's talking about, she didn't make that argument actually even in her article. She's just saying that she's undermined it by saying what? That she thinks that the public school system has gone awry. Well, maybe that's a good thing for somebody to come back and be critical of the public school system. Maybe that means she actually cares more about it than the people who are running the public school system into the dirt. Also, maybe the fact that she homeschools, maybe she believes deeply in education and she has some ideas about what curriculum could look like or parental choice could look like or how we could make education better. It's just a reflection of how people who are outside the system right now. I'm not saying I support Michele Morrow because I honestly don't know really even enough about her campaign other than what I've read in a lot of these articles. I'm going to ask her to come on the show and maybe she'll do it and talk more about it. I'm just saying that in their own reporting about her, they don't make the case for their statements. And I think that for me as a former television journalist, that's where my interest lies because, well, I'll show you this. In this WUNC public radio article, at least they say she's described herself as further right, more conservative. Here it is. Morrow casts herself as more conservative than Truitt. That's the incumbent. Portrays herself as further right on issues of critical race theory, school safety, and parental rights. I mean, I think that's fair to say she considers herself more conservative and portrays herself as right. But like we're going to see in a video I'm going to show you in a second, that they call her far right. And then in this is an opinion piece, existential threat. I think that's, obviously that's opinion that, and just calling her far right, which they never say far left about anybody, but it's very easy to just say far right. I think they take what she's saying and then they create this hysteria about it. She's an existential threat. I mean, I was in seminary and studied the existentialists. I don't think that the existentialists would really understand the use of this word here, like people like Kierkegaard. But anyway, as far as this, it's like the existence of public schools, which she's trying to say. The very existence of public schools is at risk right now with somebody like this coming in charge. But then the case that she builds is really just that she's a homeschool mom. She thinks public education is a total mess. And what else? She's made, okay, so say she has made inflammatory statements or even said stuff that's not totally true. I mean, okay, find me a politician and somebody in government who hasn't done that. And so are they an existential threat? To me, whenever I read this stuff, I just sit back and I think, how do you define the system that you're so concerned about? Because when you're talking about it being an existential threat, you're saying that like it's a threat to the way you see life and the way you see the way that the world should be working, not even as an opinion, but as like ipso facto reality. And that somebody who comes in and criticizes your way of life is now a threat to these ideals, these norms, without seeing that all the things that you're critical of, actually your own people have been doing quite a bit. Just like when we see MSNBC, for instance, reporting about the white rural rage being the number one threat to democratic norms in the United States. And they name all these things that the US government is currently doing. Like they said white rural people don't believe in the free press. I mean, who's the number one threat to free speech in the United States of America right now? Farmer Joe? I mean, are you kidding me? Well, Farmer Joe, maybe Joe Biden, even though he's not a farmer, but whatever. I mean, I just think that that's so interesting. So that said, before we go any further, because we're going to watch a video in a second, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware, okay? You can support my work by being someone who checks out AllisonMorrow.locals.com. Great way to support me on my editorial board. We're going to go over there in a second. If you go to AllisonMorrow.locals.com, you can pay $5 a month to be on my editorial board. It's a great way to put in questions ahead of time for interviews, comments, and stuff like that. If Michele Morrow comes on the show, you'll be able to ask her a question. You want to send me some mail? You can send it to P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida, 34432. I get lots of great letters. You don't like to use your credit card. It's a great way to send me some extra loose pocket change. You want to send me a preferably winning lottery ticket. That's also a great idea as well. You can also go to check out some of my sponsors. I now have a new sponsor that I cross paths with because of, I actually got an EpiPen from TeleRx because it was $500 at my local pharmacy, and TeleRx sells it for half the price. They are an online pharmacy that's very different than other pharmacies because they really put the patient's choice at the center of what they do. And you can get 20% off with promo code Allison. Like I said, I got my EpiPen here. I've these allergic reactions now to Florida insects. Apparently, Florida's trying to kill me. It just happens. They do no like data mining because you don't have to submit any data about yourself. All you do is basically consent to your understanding of the use of what you're getting. So when I got an EpiPen, the list of what an EpiPen is used for is there. I consent to understanding what the drug is used for. I don't have to put any information about myself. I don't have to have a prior prescription. I don't have to tell you, that I have this or this issue or like any medical history. I don't have to submit pictures. You don't have to have an appointment with a doctor. And a lot of the online pharmacies have popped up for medical freedom in the last few years require a lot of data from the patient. And in this particular case, there's no data that you're giving. So you don't have to worry about that. It was created to really put the patient back in the driver's seat. They've got consumer direct pricing, so it's a lot cheaper. For emergency purposes, I have found this to be a very fast and efficient way. I'm obviously somebody who is really focused on natural health. For my inflammatory issues when it comes to these stings I've been getting, I'm doing a lot of vitamin C, and I totally support that kind of thing. I also do not want to die of respiratory failure at home by myself with the 2 young kids, so I have an EpiPen. So in that event, you need something like this. TeleRx, 20% off with promo code Allison. It's really fast. You'll get what you need within a day or two. And like I said, it does everything streamlined very quickly without really invading any of your privacy. Okay, so check them out. Let's go back to the video I want to show you really quickly from WRAL. Again, a very popular news organization, news media organization in Raleigh, probably the leading North Carolina news organization. I just got to cue up the audio because we're going to watch this in a second. Here we go. It is called Conservative Activist Michele Morrow pulled off a major upset in her quest to run North Carolina public schools. And I should just say she still does have to face the Democrat candidate in the final election. But here we go.
Have a new leader next year after one of the biggest upsets in the primary elections in the race for state superintendent. The woman who holds that job now, Truitt, lost her re-election bid. The winner last night was Michele Morrow, who has called public schools socialism centers and indoctrination centers. Our Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie is live in Raleigh tonight to explain how Morrow was able to win. Laura?
Gerald, it's unusual for an incumbent Council of State member to lose to a primary challenger. I can't remember the last time that happened, in fact, but that's exactly what happened to Republican State Schools Superintendent Truitt. Truitt had the backing of most of the state's GOP establishment, but a Stop the Steal activist defeated her last night by thousands of votes. Conservative activist Michele Morrow ran unsuccessfully for Wake County School Board in 2022 with the backing of far-right group Moms for Liberty. She has called public schools indoctrination centers and urged others not to send their children to them. She posted a video from the January 6th protest at the U.S. Capitol, but said she did not participate in the riot that ensued.
We are here to take back America. We are here to stop the steal. We are here to ensure that President Trump gets 4 more years. And we are here to ensure that the United States never becomes a communist country.
Morrow.
Okay, so just real fast, I'm just chiming in here. You can see by the lower third, far-right challenger defeats North Carolina Schools Superintendent Truitt in GOP primary. So they call her far-right. Can you even imagine a news report about an education superintendent official being called far left? I mean, honestly, I just think about where the education system in the United States is right now. Like how crazy some of the stuff that's going on there is. And like in Washington State, where I am right now, some of the policies and some of the stuff I've even had on my channel, the like education, the let's call it birds and the bees education, that like some of the Board of Education people, there's one person in particular, she owns, there's kids around here, so I'm going to just call it a birds and the bees shop, where you buy birds and the bees products, not Burt's Bees. Okay. I'm talking birds and the bees products, it rhymes with born, but it starts with P. Anyway, like they want to have these workshops for kids as young as 7 in Southern Washington. And so like this, has that person ever been called far left? And would that be appropriate anyway? Should it just be, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that they use that moniker when, like, you think about the education system and where it's headed, and like that never gets used. Not saying it should. I'm just saying, like, when do they ever say that? How left do you have to get on the spectrum before they would call you that as a public school elected official or somebody who's running for an elected position?
Has no background in public education.
They really don't like that she has no background in public education. I mean, that continues coming up, that she has no background. Like the article I just read you, she's an existential threat. She doesn't believe in it, even though that's not true. I think it would be crazy to think somebody who's spending their time running for education leadership positions does not believe in public education. She obviously does care about public education. She just thinks that it's a mess right now. And just to think that somebody who says, don't send your kids, like if I said, don't become a TV news reporter right now because it's a total mess and you'll never get to do journalism, does that mean I don't believe in journalism? No, it actually means I believe quite a bit in journalism. That's why I'm saying you shouldn't go work in a TV newsroom, because you're not going to get to be a journalist. And if you go to public school right now, you might not get an education. I mean, what is that? But they just assume that means that you don't believe in the system. No, actually, a lot of us who are critical of what's happening right now in the United States, for instance, I believe very much in the First Amendment, in your right to free speech, to say what you want without the government throwing you in jail or pressuring a tech company to rip you offline. But because I criticize it, what does that mean? Because I've lost my job because of what I do on this line, because I was fired over that. Does that mean I don't believe in it? No, it means I was willing to risk my livelihood for it. But when somebody on the other side looks like she's just gone off the deep end.
But told WRAL before the election that 16 years of homeschooling her children has prepared her for the job and helped her to see what's wrong with schools.
We're discussing things that aren't basic to reading, writing, math, science, and history. There's a lot of political agenda. There's a lot of social agendas that are in our classrooms, and it's taking up time.
Morrow criticized incumbent Superintendent Truitt as not conservative enough. She did not raise much campaign money, but went to a lot of local GOP meetings and got endorsements from local grassroots conservative groups. She was also endorsed by Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Meantime, Truitt did not run a high-profile campaign. She declined to be interviewed today, but said on Facebook, "While last night's election did not go the way I had hoped, I am deeply proud of what we accomplished, and I'm gratified by the support of educators, parents, school and legislative leaders, and so many others across the state."
One thing I thought was interesting is in a lot of the coverage that I saw, they talked about how Truitt did not run a high-profile campaign, almost saying that she lost because she just didn't campaign hard enough or something. And that Michele Morrow won because she just didn't have this difficult job to do as superintendent. So she was able to go around and rally people. And so that's the only reason she won. And I think it's another one of my big takeaways in the reporting about this kind of stuff over literally years of talking about it, is that it often looks at the candidate. Like Trump even is a great example of this. Like you look at Trump and you blame everything on Trump, but it's like, these Michele Morrow, Trump, whoever you're talking about, there's a reason people are voting for them. And, your issue is not really the politician so much as, like, if you're on the opposition, so much as the fact that, like, there is a real reason that a lot of people have opted out of your particular ideas of the way things should be run and are voting for somebody you severely dislike. And maybe understanding where that's coming from, and not in an infantilizing kind of way, but really trying to understand the failures of your system, like would go a long way, I think, instead of just being like, she just didn't get out and campaign because she has a hard job. She's superintendent. She didn't have time. But Michele Morrow, she's a homeschool mom of 5. So, like, obviously she's got tons of time, because that's exactly what we moms who have stay-at-home jobs do.
In November, Morrow will face Democrat Mo Green, the former superintendent of Guilford County Schools and recent leader of the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation. He declined to comment on Morrow's victory. Now, we asked Michele Morrow for an interview several times today, but her campaign declined. However,
yeah, her campaign wouldn't talk to the news. That's shocking.
We did recently receive a statement just in the last few seconds, in fact, in which she says she is honored to receive the voter support. Morrow also said that school safety is one of her major campaign issues, and she'll be working hard to try to get funding for school resource officers and to keep sexual predators out of the classroom.
Okay, did you hear anything in the last couple of things that you disagree with? Hang on, let's just go back for a second, okay? What she's gonna focus on.
And to keep sexual
Whoops,
predators
hang
out
on.
of the She'll be working hard to try to get funding for school resource officers and to keep sexual predators out of the classroom.
Okay, she's going to work on getting funding for school resource officers, which are safety officers, and keeping, what was it again? Let me go back. Keeping, sexual issues out of, sexual predators.
And to keep sexual predators out of the classroom.
Sexual predators out of the classroom. This is controversial. Hang on.
Gerald?
Oh man. So yeah, that's where we're at now. That's far right. So that's far right activism at this point. You tell me, what do you think? Please let me know in the comment section. Don't forget, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I want to celebrate, or maybe you're Paige Maston at the paper and you're freaking out because this is existentialist threat to your way of life and you want a glass of wine because you just don't know any other way to get over this, then go to AllisonWinePromo.com and get yourself a glass of wine. And you know what? At least you'll have a good glass of wine. I'm not saying you should get so drunk that you forget about it. I'm just saying you should have a good glass of wine that's going to take your taste buds and focus you on something else. Okay. AllisonWinePromo.com, 50% off my favorite Malbecs, 50% off shipping. These are the extremist altitude wines that have been part of my show for years now. They never, well, of course the wine doesn't tell me, but the company doesn't tell me what to say, who to talk to, who to interview. And it's really hard to find sponsors that are like that these days. If you're already a wine drinker, you have no excuse. AllisonWinePromo.com, between 6,000 and 9,000 feet, very remote region. So there's fewer pesticides. The grapes are working extremely hard under the sun. What else? The wines come from small family farms, one from over 200 years old, one from one of the highest vineyards in the world. You cannot get wines like this really hardly anywhere but Bonner Wine. So, and Will Bonner, the guy who runs the company, he actually has traveled to all of these vineyards. And he said he almost died going to one. It was so remote. So go check him out, AllisonWinePromo.com. And then again, don't forget to go to AllisonMorrow.locals.com and become part of my editorial board. Really appreciate everybody who's over on the chat there and hanging out with us on Locals. Again, great way to support the work I do. And I will continue over there. So if you're watching somewhere else, consider joining the editorial board and get the whole show. Okay. Thanks for watching on Rumble, Rockfin, and YouTube. See you later.